We are so excited to have everybody here today. So excited that I can't talk. Hi. I'm Abby Zeidel. I'm the Associate Director of Marketing here at Gallery Books, and I'm very excited to have you joining us for the Book Club Favorites discussion of Lisa Genova's Every Note Played. We're thrilled to be here talking about this amazing book, and I have some wonderful people helping me out talking about Lisa and Every Note Played today. First, I'd like you all to meet Carol Fitzgerald. She is the founder of bookreporter.com and readinggroupguides.com, and a book expert extraordinaire. We're thrilled to have her chiming in.
Thanks for inviting me.
And we also have the lovely Britta Lundberg. She is an editorial assistant here at Scout Books and has worked with Lisa and Lisa's editor. So we're happy to have her here. Maybe she'll tell us how the sausage is made, maybe not. But we're thrilled to have her joining us, and we're thrilled to have all of you joining us. So I want to remind all of you and incentivize you to comment. We have a couple of exciting reasons that you should be commenting, not just because it's great to talk about books, but first of all, keep your eyes on the comments because the author, Lisa Genova, will be joining us and chiming in. So you'll get a chance to sort of see from her. She'll be piping up as well, and we'll definitely be shouting that out whenever we can. And also, free stuff. We love free stuff. There's a giveaway. 5 commenters chosen at random are going to get a copy of Every Note Played. If you've already read and worn yours out because you've dog-eared it so much, well, now you have a nice, fresh new one. Or you can give it to a book-loving friend who you want to talk about this book with. And in addition to getting this, you're also going to get a copy of the special 10th anniversary edition of Still Alice.
10 years already.
Can you believe it?
10 years.
No, it's like stays with you like it's yesterday. So this is a great giveaway. 5 of you commenting, chosen at random, are going to get these 2 books. But you got to comment. So chime in, tell us what you liked, ask questions. We'll talk about what we think. The author, Lisa Genova, will chime in and answer some stuff for you, and it's going to be terrific. I also just want to let you know I'm not being super rude when I keep checking my phone in the middle of this. This is how I'm finding out what you all are telling us. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on it, trying to look for your comments, your questions, to make sure that we get a chance to talk about what you want to talk about. And with that, I think let's just dive in. I'll start out and just, for anyone who maybe didn't quite finish the book yet, or maybe is just chiming in and is wondering if this is for them, let me tell you a very little bit about the plot of this book, and then we will go. So, Every Note Played by Lisa Genova, it's basically about Richard, who is a concert pianist. He's divorced from his ex-wife, Karina, and he's kind of estranged from his daughter. He's a bit of a prickly soul, one might say, in that dramatic artiste vein. But he receives a devastating diagnosis of ALS, which is sometimes known as Lou Gehrig's disease. You might have heard of it from the ALS challenge that went around the internet. It's really a difficult diagnosis, and he becomes not only unable to continue his career as a concert pianist, but unable to live on his own. And the person who has to come and help is his ex-wife, Karina. So this story really is about family and trying to figure out what do you do for each other, and how are these 2 people who kind of had this fractured relationship going to reconcile. So that's a very, very broad overview. Let's jump right in. I am fascinated by that, the way this really forces you to wrangle with the idea of what do we owe to each other, and how do you find the strength to make a choice like Karina has to make, to come back to her ex-husband. And it wasn't exactly an amicable divorce.
No, and he was a player. He was a player, and all that time he was hurting her as time went on. But at what point do you put that aside? Because there's something far bigger going on here. Yeah. And he, as an artist, is losing such a huge part of his life because music defined him. Mm-hmm. And playing a note and then not being able to do that again was such a huge blow to him that everything else just sort of by the wayside. What happens? Is he the same person that she left before? I mean, we don't know.
Yeah, of course. And it's, of course, complicated by the fact that they have a daughter together, whom they both love so much. And at the end of the day, you know, putting aside their divorce, he is the father of their daughter, Grace.
And it's dealing with the diagnosis. And at first you have to understand that. And where she finds it out is a completely, I'm not going to blow that for everybody about how she finds out, but she's shocked. And when she hears this from somebody else, it's like, why did he cancel the concert? And somebody tells her, like, didn't you know? And this poor woman is just sitting there now. This has blown up her world too, as well. And now, how are you going to tell your child this when there's so much other damage that has happened along the way? And does the damage go away then? Or what happens?
Right. Do you just have to swallow it, or can you find some grace in the caretaking action maybe that brings you a peace that you couldn't have gotten otherwise? It's really an interesting
and
question
when
that way.
she comes out to help him, it's like he just dials her by accident. And all of a sudden, she says, well, I'm coming. Like, the other person's not going to be for the 30 minutes. Of course I'll be there. And what did it take? Or was that just a knee-jerk reaction on her part of, I'll just be there. I'll just be there for you. So
yeah, that particular scene is it's heart-wrenching and intense, and really kind of brings things home very quickly. And one of the things that's really interesting about Lisa's work, both in this book and in the rest of her books, is how intensely and carefully the medical diagnoses we're talking about are treated. Brita, you were telling us a little bit about her background.
Yeah, not only is she an author of incredible, moving fiction, but she has a PhD in neuroscience from Harvard. So
leave the rest of us something to be good at,
Right.
Lisa.
her
Okay.
TED Talks.
Yes.
Let's just do a TED Talk on X topic.
she's like on the Dr. Oz show. She's brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
In both fields, and I'm convinced there's nothing she can't do.
Yeah.
So she brings such a wealth of knowledge to these characters and what they must be experiencing throughout the course of the diagnosis and the experience of the disease, but she contextualizes it and makes it intimate by giving the disease a face and a family, and I guess bringing it to life through personal experience of that family.
Every character she's written, and this is what, sixth book,
Yeah.
every single character I remember. So I don't just remember the disease and what happened to that family. I think about those families. So when I hear somebody has ALS, you're immediately thinking you've got a lens that you're looking at it through.
Right.
And it's not just putting water on your head.
Yeah.
This is what happens to these people. And there's that one line, I think it was on page 50, where it's every note played is lightened and deaf. So every single time you're hitting a note, it's the difference between, will I ever do this again, or was this my last time? Is this the way it's going to evolve? And you don't know the pace of the disease, and you don't know what's going on. And she's very good at sharing those intimate details of what happens to people.
And I love particularly the way that not only is she sharing what happens to the person who's experiencing
Exactly.
the progression of
Yeah.
the disease, but all the people around that person. And sort of like what you were saying earlier, where Karina is like, of course I'll come, but it's blowing up her life in ways she didn't imagine, or Grace having to
Right.
experience this. And it's stunning. And one of Lisa's real gifts, I think, is in different hands, someone with that much scientific knowledge might write something that was a bit dry or a bit
Or
too textbook.
clinical, or
It's never clinical. It's
Never.
It's never prescriptive.
Nope.
It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
You actually feel the emotions of what people are doing.
Yeah, you know what this table is missing is a box of Kleenex.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
really, I think this book,
It's a gut wrencher.
you just want to wallow in the feelings that way.
And you know what I think is also interesting too is what she also brings up a lot on her website and in talking to people is how little research is done on a lot of the things that she writes about, because there's so few people that have it that it's almost not worth it to find a cure, because it's not that many people that this is going to impact. And when you're sitting and you're thinking about that and you're reading these characters, it becomes a whole different story. I have a friend who 20 years ago, he told me his father had ALS, and I was like, what is this? And he said, this is what's going to happen. And I have a friend who passed away a couple of years ago, and it was the exact same thing. It feels like there were not, super huge strides of, it's going to be, X, Y, Z. And yes, things have happened, but there's also, and I think she's bringing up a lot, is that there are not that many people who have this. So it's not, it's something that people are looking at quite the same way. And her bringing an attention to it in, not just put ice bucket challenge on your head, but this is what happens.
Yes, yeah, it's not that there's not a place for those kind of challenges and that kind of energy, but this is actually a great point for me to suggest to people who see this. If you go to Lisa's website, lisagenova.com, she has set up sort of a movement called Empathy in Action, and she's working with a group called ALS One. And you can find out more about it on her page. But if you are moved to contribute to this efforts in whatever way you can, whether that's time or learning more about something or making a donation, you can go to Lisa's website and find out more. And I love that she feels it seems like she carries that responsibility with her. Like she has voluntarily taken on this role of almost translating from science to the average person, and then she's really extending that platform in a way that's very moving.
And this story was personal to her too. After what happened with, I believe it was the writer of Still Alice or the producer,
the director.
I think it was the director.
Yes.
And he was dying of ALS, and I think that makes her all the more able to sit there and write the story from a very, very personal point of view,
and a very respectful point of view as well.
Well, we're talking about this a lot, and of course it is a key element of the book, but I don't want people to think that it's all just
because there's
a
this
drag.
great, what I learned a lot about was classical music.
Yeah.
And classical music performance, which I've gone to a lot of concerts in my days. I've not gone to a lot of classical performances where someone just walks on the stage, sits down at a piano, there's no backup band, there's nothing, and they're just in charge of the energy and whatever happens in the room that day. And how he's gone to all these places as really, a big personality in that world. And now when you can't play with one hand or you can't do this, what does that mean for you? Because that work to find you. And I think that she does such a good job of, I've learned so much about the classical music world that I confess I didn't know much about. So
Yeah. It is. It's suddenly, I didn't realize, but it almost feels like being a classical musician or pianist maybe in particular is almost like it's music, but it's a little bit of acting, it's a little bit of dance almost in
it's
the way
stage.
you inhabit that performance. And so that was fascinating. And Lisa made a playlist, I think, too.
She
which,
did.
I
She
didn't
mentioned
see that.
several
Okay.
pieces of music throughout, and it just is the perfect soundtrack for reading the book as well.
that's great. So if somebody's in a book group, that would be something great to play as everybody's gathering and everybody's getting together at the beginning, because those enhancements are the things that make a book group a lot more fun.
Yeah.
The extra things that you can be reading. I mean, maybe your group is going to make a donation at the end of when you're meeting, or you're going to talk about the classical music that inspired you through the years and things like that.
maybe some of you play. You
Maybe
know?
somebody plays, exactly.
I love that idea, and I wonder if anyone out in the comments has ever had this experience you were talking about. There's so many people, not necessarily to this extent perhaps, but who've trained for something or who've been highly skilled in something and then had it taken away or ended for reasons maybe not always behind their control or beyond their control. And what was that experience like for you? I can just, that feeling is something that even though an ALS diagnosis might be quite rare, in a more modified way, this having to change a dream midstream is a really interesting thread, I think, through this story.
And his wife changed her.
Yes.
She changed her dream because she wanted to be a jazz pianist, and he didn't think that was worthy. He didn't think that was good. So everything was defined by his career. Everything he was seeing through his lens. And as a result for her, what did that mean? She gave up her dream. She gave up what she was going to do because she would have needed to do that someplace else. So there's this whole thing of sort of checks and balances that happen throughout this relationship.
And that tension that they have to negotiate when they, are face to face with one another again.
Yeah.
It's
And
really
living together
interesting.
again.
And living
Yes.
together. And
Yeah, she's not just coming over to help. She has to move back into the house. And, it's sort of like the worst, best roommate situation you
Yeah.
could ever have. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's difficult because he doesn't want to be taken care of.
No.
And every single moment that she's doing something for him is meaning that he can't do something for himself. So you're seeing this, I think a lot of the book is give and take. It's who's given, who's taken all along the way, and what does he want to give back to her as a result of what's going on. And how does he change along the way? There's a very interesting story to look at as well.
Yeah, the idea that you think maybe coming in, this is a story about physical change, and it's not really. It's so much more mental, spiritual, emotional, that it makes you think about your own journeys.
And even though his change is the most perhaps apparent or physically apparent, he's not the only one changing throughout the course of the book.
No, and to have to tell your child and to sit there and then deal with their pain and what they're feeling. But by the same token, like you said, it's not a saggest book.
No.
It's making you think about enjoying every day. Because when you see something like this and you realize that every note played is a life and a death, you want to sit there and say, what am I doing every day, and is it making me happy?
Yeah.
And what are you going to do as a result?
Absolutely.
And I think that's really important to be thinking about as well.
That's so true. I'm going to just tell anyone who's joining us midstream that we are here discussing Lisa Genova's wonderful book, Every Note Played, as part of the Simon & Schuster Book Club Favorites program. We love having you. Please do chime in the comments, ask a question. The author, Lisa Genova, is peeking in as well, and I'm sure would be happy to give us the real scoop on anything that we're getting wrong. And as an added incentive, we will be choosing 5 commenters after the live is over, to receive both a copy of Every Note Played and a copy of the Still Alice 10th Anniversary Edition. So really, these are, it's from her very first step to her most recent. You get a great sense of Lisa, and perhaps you remember the Academy Award-winning movie and Julianne Moore's amazing performance. And if you haven't had a chance to read this book yet, that's another wonderful one. So all it costs you is a comment. People, come in, ask us something, tell us what you thought about the book. We're eager to hear from you. So, as you were saying, I want to come back to some of the other endearing, wonderful moments in the book. Bill, Richard's caretaker, is such a great character. And really, I think I found, just in sort of looking through reviews and stuff and comments online, a fan favorite, it seems like.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes him feel like a person. He's not making him feel like a patient. He's making him feel like a person, and that is so important at that point for him. And if you're going through something like this, you can be kind of grumbly or whatever, and he just like tunes it out. Like, let's just keep moving. Let's keep going ahead. How can I make your life better today? Yep. And there's an art to that. I
feel like we should all try to. I want to try and emulate Bill, find my inner Bill, and keep myself a little more positive, maybe.
And it's also thinking about, yes, we're talking about this one illness in this one situation, but it's really anything that you can be doing for people, of reaching out. And what are your friends going through that you could be like the Bill person to them? And what could you be doing? And I think a lot of people are just, there's so many moments you can do that, you know?
Brita, what did you think about Grace? Because we haven't talked about her much, but she's a college age, the daughter of this kind of challenging couple. So you can really come at this generationally as well.
Yeah. When the book opens, I think she's just finished her first year at college, so the family is already at a point of transition. And then, of course, there's the question of how to tell Grace about Richard's diagnosis while she's away from home. Like you said, it's not just a book about the diagnosis, but about how it affects the entire family. And some of the lighter moments that I loved with Grace were sort of centered on her relationship with her mom, Karina. Karina at one point goes to visit Grace at college and meets the boyfriend she's been hiding from her. And so there's all of these points of lightness that remind you that this is a family like any other.
Life is going on. Life is going on.
Their life
this is going
continues.
And it really, nothing is wasted in Lisa's writing, because that moment, while it's a bit of lightness and it's so real and it's such a touch point where anyone can kind of relate to that experience, and at the same time it's thematically tying into Karina's sense that her whole life in some ways has been people being like, nope, gotta leave, gotta go, I'm going on tour again, you stay here, or the natural experience of your college-age daughter growing up and being like, Mom, I'm done. And the way she interweaves that.
Not today. Not even today. No.
So I love the layers that she works into, even small choices.
Yeah, and I love the way that Grace really roots for her mom as well, and is, she talks about her history as a jazz pianist, and so you get all sorts of layers of the family's history throughout.
Yeah, definitely makes it a lot more fun because it makes it real.
It makes it real.
Did you have any particular moments or scenes that stayed with you when you closed the book?
To me, it was really the moment where he had to just close the piano and say, I can't do this anymore. And that's got to be so disheartening and so tough. I remember a couple weeks ago when Lindsey Vonn ended her skiing career, and she was planning to ski the whole season, and then just realized my knees can't do it. And she calls everybody and says, I need you to come. This is it. And everybody can't make it. But she knows that this is only one more time. And for him, it's that one moment of, it's it. And did he reconcile that in his head ahead of time? And then other people will often say to you, oh, you can still do it. Or like, why don't you just try? And I think that that's something that somebody in this situation doesn't need to be hearing is, oh, well, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. It's not okay. Let's just assume it's not okay.
Yeah. And I think people, we fumble for what to say, and we're like, how do I make you feel better? And
without trivializing their experience.
And a lot of people say nothing because they don't know what to say. And I think that if anything, what you walk away from Lisa's books with is what you can say and how you can do something for a family or how you can make them feel something at this point. Even just saying, I understand or I'm trying to understand would be something that'd be so important for somebody to hear. Because you can't sit there and say, I get it, it's not me. No. But, just to try to have that empathy and, to drop off that meal, to drop off, to do something that just makes those people feel special or spend time. Because a lot of times it's just somebody being else in the room besides those two people because they're so tied to each other and the disease of what's going on around them, and just have somebody come in that has a different perspective, a different thought about life.
Oh, for sure. There are days when I'm sick of my husband and we're fine. I can only imagine when you don't have the freedom to be like, peace out, I'm going outside.
I've a friend whose husband passed away recently, and I just shoot her notes like every once in a while because I realize once something happens, people stop after a while, and you want to note those dates that still matter. And in this book you'd want to know okay, what's his birthday, because that's going to mean something to her later on, and all those kinds of things. And I think that Lisa sparks that kind of emotion in you that you're thinking, well, what can I do, instead of, oh, there's nothing I can do and this is just a real despairing situation.
That's so
true.
Seeing
what people are doing, you know?
And one of the things that I really like, just looking to see what kind of responses people had to that. So many people were saying, someone in my life has just received a diagnosis and I didn't even know what this was or I didn't know what to do with it. Right. And this book helped me really understand what they were going to be experiencing, not just what's happening right now, but where this is going to lead, and in a way helping the friends around you to know what to expect and prepare so that they can be
and
supportive in the right
directions.
way.
It's not everybody presents the same way with the disease, and it doesn't accelerate the same way. I remember my husband and I were saying we were going to go down and visit our friend in Florida in April. He didn't make it till April, but you didn't think about that at the time, and now we both said next time you just jump on the plane, and you wouldn't even think. And I think that hearing was this guy's last concert? Was this you just go out and experience your friends' lives. Spend time now, and I think that that's one of the takeaways I had.
As you said, every note played is a life and a death.
Every note played, because you just don't know.
We have agreement in the comments for sure, because Lori was saying that Genova's characters are so relatable. They're all real families.
Yes.
You never feel like this is a, I don't want to say cartoon character, that's too trivializing, but it's not a straw man set up to teach a lesson. They are real families going through real things, and they are, that I think is the power of how they connect with you. And Cindy Garcia chimes in too. Great, you're going to be eligible to possibly win one of those copies. And she actually said that usually she'll read a book and you move right on to the next. We're all kind of voracious readers, I think. But this one stuck with her for weeks afterwards, and it is her favorite of Lisa's so far.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think, they're all so powerful that it's hard to pick a favorite.
I remember all the families.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I remember families. I remember what the families were going through. I can picture it. And it's not from the movie of Still Alice. It's the one from my head. Not that the movie's not great, everybody, but from what I conceptualized in my head, the family of Parkinson's. Every time I hear somebody that's Parkinson's in the family, I'm like, did you take the test? Who didn't take the test? Blah, blah, blah. You're really remembering these people and what they've been through. And I find that fascinating, that you're able to, the characters are so vivid that they're personifying not the disease but the impact on the whole family.
Now, I know you're a Lisa Genova superfan.
Right.
Is it unfair? Is it like asking you to choose one child? Do you have a favorite?
Well, let's just say, Still Alice was the one that turned me on to Lisa. And, like, you can always go back to Still Alice, and, just because you've known so many people with Alzheimer's, I would say that this is probably my second, and it's just because of it having touched my life a couple of times and not knowing at the time, like I learned through my friends, but this was a much peculiar review, just looking at it crystallized through one person's eyes. And also the music was a huge thing to me. The music was a huge part of it for me because I knew nothing about it, and it was, the whole concert scene was so brilliantly brought to light.
That's fascinating. Brita, do you feel like if you had someone who was a music fan but maybe not a classical music fan, would this speak to them too?
I think absolutely, because even if you're not a classical music fan, I think if you are a music fan, you can identify with music playing a large role in your life, or perhaps even part of your identity, and sort of negotiating that alongside Richard.
He's performed his whole life, and now what is he performing as his life lapse? Because it's the same kind of a thing.
Yeah. Very different piece.
Very different piece.
Someone in our comments is asking how Lisa does her research. We mentioned a bit that, of course, first you get a PhD from Harvard.
Exactly. In neuroscience.
Exactly, in neuroscience. Brita, did you know anything about how, does Lisa come to you sort of, here is the book out of my skull, whole cloth? Does she do all that on the slide before it gets to you and to Allison, her editor, or do you know of any of the stuff that she does while she's deciding how to write it?
I've only worked with her for about a year and a half, so every note played was, fully written by the time I started. But I know that she talks with a lot of people and gets to know a lot of people who have been impacted by the diseases that she writes about, and so she, that intimacy shows on the page, I think.
There's a lot of that in the back of the book.
A lot of that in the back of the book
that she really shares of all the people that she's met and how they had an impact with her.
Yep.
So
I think that really adds to why the thing that we keep coming back to is how personal a story this is. And you can't do that without it's like grassroots research in a way, and it's heart to heart. We, believe it or not, are, Lisa, actually, before I wrap us up, I will say, because Lisa was able to let some of you know in the comments, and if you didn't see the comments, we'll tell you out here, she interviewed world-class pianists as well. That's how the music was done so well. She went to concerts, she went to New Orleans to listen to jazz, and she took piano lessons.
Whoa.
Are we going to have...
She's not thorough.
She's incredible. Lisa, I think we need some of you playing piano on your website.
Please.
We should get a video up there of that.
Yes, please.
I think that's a great, not only a great suggestion, but a great way to kind of wrap this up. So I'm going to thank everybody.
On.
Yes, exactly. Thank you all for joining us and chiming in the comments and listening to us talk about this terrific book. Once again, if somehow you've just turned this on, I will remind you, this is Lisa Genova's Every Note Played. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. And thank you for joining us here at Simon & Schuster's Book Club Favorites discussion on our Facebook Live today. I want to remind everybody that we will be choosing 5 lucky commenters to receive copies of Every Note Played and Still Alice, the 10th anniversary edition. Hold that up again. Thank you.
What's next month's book?
And next month's book, I will...
Are you going to share?
I will be willing to share. Why, yes. And in fact, I happen to have one right here.
Look at this.
Next month in March, we'll be doing Lolly Winston's Me for You. Now, some of you, if you've been reading in the trenches for a while, may remember the name Lolly Winston.
Absolutely.
She did a very popular book called Good Grief, and this is her newest book, Me for You. And actually, you know what's funny is it also has a piano connection.
It does.
It does, because one of the protagonists in this book, he is the piano player at Nordstrom's. And it's a very sweet story about finding love again when it wasn't expected. So we'll leave you with that. Again, that's Me for You, Lolly Winston. And thank you all for joining us. I want to give my thanks to Carol Fitzgerald of bookreporter.com and readinggroupguides.com, and to Brita Lundberg of Scout Books. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to Book Club Favorites and Simon & Schuster for having us. And happy reading, everybody. Thank you for joining in.